I'm grateful that my journey has been inspiring and captivating. Because that's something else that I have really had to hold tight to during this journey when nothing makes sense. And to be frank, I'm still fighting some challenges related to this health journey, and I might always fight them. So this story is not over, that's for sure. But to know that it can impact my struggles, can impact someone else and give them encouragement and hope, what a gift that is to know that what I've been through, it serves a purpose and it's helping other people, even when maybe I can't help people in the same way that I used to in the hospital setting. I can still help people with my journey.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. Excited to have everybody back. We have another amazing author on the podcast, which always makes me so happy that we can chat about the author's journey, great books, and for you as a reader, the opportunity to fall in love with another great author. So Sara is here with us today. Sara, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Excited to be here with you, Dave, and excited to connect with all the listeners that are here.
Amazing.
Sure.
Good stuff. So we always like to start here. Tell everybody where you are in this big world of ours.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am in Nebraska, smack in the middle of the U.S., as far away from the ocean as you could be. And, here we are.
There you go.
We have pretty sunsets.
So not a lot of sea things around your area.
No. There's no.
Good. Well, yeah, I'm pretty far from the ocean where I am as well. So, but I always love to kind of go visit and see something different than where I live. So
absolutely. I think it makes me appreciate the ocean more when I get to.
Good stuff. Good stuff. You are an author, which is great. I always like to kind of find this out from my guest as well. There was a point in time for you when being an author was maybe not even in your mind or your thoughts. And now here you are an author. So what was the transition between not knowing you were going to be an author one day to us having a conversation today? Something happened. So how did that start for you?
For sure. I never considered myself a writer, let alone had a dream to be an author. So many people have dreamt for years of writing their own book, and I never was on my radar at all. And then I had a really significant health journey, and I've had some atypical challenges in my life along the way. And then this big health journey really was the catalyst to share my story with other people from a place that people felt like they weren't alone. Like, I never want someone who's journeying through a season of struggle to feel like they're alone. So that was the purpose of this book, was to really come alongside people in a very conversational way and encourage, support, help them to see the light when maybe they can't see it on their own right now.
So apart from your book, have you been writing in other areas in the past as well?
Not really. Okay. Like, reflecting back, my parents would maybe say that I always was the one to write a sappy birthday card or a letter or something like that. But no, I never really considered myself to be a writer in a formal fashion.
Okay, so I'm curious then, as a non-author myself, at this point, how do you even start to write a book if writing has not been in your DNA from day one? Where do you even start in the process?
For sure. Yes. For me, how I started was because I was struggling with my health, I knew that I wanted to capture the rawness and the vulnerability of where I was in those moments. And I did not have the physical capacity to sit down and write it out. So I really used the voice notes on my phone and just opened up the notes app, and I turned on the audio recorder and I just spoke what was on my heart, what I was dealing with, all those kind of things. And I just would add to them every so often over the course of probably a year while this health journey was going on. And then as more and more people kind of planted the seed of, you should write a book, I thought, well, how can I do that? Oh, I do have those notes saved. So I literally took all the notes, I copied them, pasted them into a Word document, didn't even read them at first, just added some other stories of my life that weren't pertinent to that health journey. And I added some details, talked a lot about my faith, incorporated that in there, made sure my Bible verses were correct, that kind of thing. And then I had this whole document that I'd never even read yet that felt like my book. So then after it was all together, I thought, okay, maybe I should actually read what is happening on these pages. So I went back, read it, really didn't add a ton, really just added some clarifiers, completed some sentences, added some commas, probably missed some commas, and really called it good. Like there was not a lot of laboring of reworking and that sort of thing. Like it's my story. It is what it is. Here you go, world. Let's see what you think.
So not a traditional way of writing a book that I've heard from some of my guests.
Probably not at all.
Right?
No, I'm sure that traditional authors and publishers are like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? That's terrible. But
it worked for you.
It did. It seemed to work. I wanted it to be like we were having coffee together and I was sharing my story. And I thought, what better way to do it than literally share my story and not doctor it up too much and make sure it all was exactly perfect and all that kind of thing.
Okay. So who did you have in mind then as a reader for your story? Did you have somebody you were kind of talking to as you wrote, or were you just capturing your own story for your sake?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I would say the person I had in mind when sharing my story is really someone in a similar situation to me, in a place maybe where their doctors don't know what's happening. They don't have the answers. Money isn't fixing it. But their family members can't help it, no matter how much they want to. And they really are stuck relying on their faith and the warrior spirit within them. Really talking to that person in that season of struggle of life. And also wanting to leave a legacy of my story for my kids and thinking about them and the future and what they've gone through growing up. I felt like that was kind of a cool gift to have a tangible copy of their story that they can then share with their kids and grandkids as well.
That's good. So somebody listening to us today, Sara, is also living with health issues, things they're trying to work through, a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, fears as they kind of navigate this. Can you share a little bit more about your health journey that might be able to resonate with someone that's listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So my health journey started, I'll start a page before the health journey started. So 2016, I was healthy. I was married. I'm still married mom of my daughters were 4 and 7 at the time. And I was working my dream job. I worked as a nurse in the neonatal intensive care unit. So I got to take care of the tiniest babies, and they're like babies that weigh less than 1 pound.
Wow.
So I want you to look at your hand right now.
I'm doing it. Yeah.
And I want you to look at the length between the tip of your thumb and like where it hooks onto your wrist.
Okay. Yeah.
That's how long a baby leg is from their hip to their toes.
Okay.
So I got to take care of babies that small.
Oh my gosh.
Like so tiny.
Wow.
And something I talk about more about in the book is that I was also a premature baby myself. So really cool to be not only taking care of these babies and helping their parents go through this really hard time and watching them grow and their babies grow and their confidence grow, like such a gift to be part of that. But I got to work alongside the nurses who took care of me in the hospital when I was a premature.
Wow, wait a minute. So the same nurses that were there when you were born?
Yeah.
Are now standing beside you as a coworker, as a team member. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like so cool. Talk about a full circle moment, right? So I'd been doing that for many years, had worked in a couple of different NICUs and finally came home, so to speak, to this NICU where I was born. And the doctor that took care of me was still working there when I started, and like, so cool. So really just living this amazing life. And my role as a nurse was I took care of babies part of the time, and then part of the time I did staff education, policies, procedures, research, that kind of role as well. So I had a dual role. And I was newer to the dual role side of things. And I probably put a lot of pressure on myself to fill the shoes that are unfillable of the person who I took over for. She'd been doing it for 30 years. Of course, I cannot replicate her, but gosh, I was trying. Yeah. So really was probably pushing myself more than I should have been looking back. Always feeling like I needed to pick up extra shifts when I could, and, taking care of my young kids and all these things. But still living the, quote, dream life, right? Because I had a great job and all the things. And then one day, early 2017, like the first week of January, I woke up and I did not feel good. Massive body aches, like in every joint of my body, and this headache, like at the back of your skull. And being a nurse, if you are a nurse listening, if you're married to a nurse, if you are related to a nurse, if you know a nurse, you know that we do not stay home very easily. Right. We are bad at practicing what we preach. So because I did not have a fever, because I was not violently ill, I did what any nurse does, and I went to work. So I went to work feeling definitely less than subpar for a few days. And to the point where my pain was so significant that I couldn't even sit still in the chair while talking to the doctors, like writhing, wriggling in pain, all the while thinking something is really wrong. But I don't have a fever. I don't have any of these things to, quote, make me stay home. So I pushed through that week. And at the start of the next week, I got up to get ready for work, and it felt like someone had hit me with a baseball bat in the back of the head. Like that pain became really intense to the point where it knocked me to my knees on the floor. And in that moment, I thought, okay, I've been ignoring my body long enough. My body's now not giving me a choice anymore. You can only ignore your body for so long before it becomes a little more drastic and turns up the volume. So at that moment, I knew, okay, I really need to figure out what's going on. So I called my husband. I said, I can't go to work today, and I need you to come drag me to the doctor. Well, he knew something was up because, like I said, nurses just go to the doctor, let alone not drive themselves to the doctor. So he drove me to the doctor. They kind of did the once over. Well, we think probably it's a migraine, which so many people have migraines. I'd never really had them before. It seemed a little atypical to what most migraines are, but I know they can present in so many ways. But they did a CAT scan just in case, did some imaging. Great. So got home, got the call. The imaging looks fine, which was a relief, right? Normal. Great. Rest, you'll be better in a day or two. Perfect. So I did that, and I was not better in a day or two. Things got worse. And to make the longest story short, things got worse and worse and worse. In every lab we drew, every test we ran, every x-ray, every imaging, all of it was completely normal.
Wow.
And by this point, okay, like a month, 2 months has gone by this point. I'm seeing specialists, and nobody knows what's happening with me. Quote, everything is normal, but I'm to the point where I have sunglasses on inside. I have earplugs in because everything is so loud, and I live in a really quiet home. Like my kids are quiet, and, there's not a lot of chaos. So it shouldn't be loud sounding. Like the beep of the microwave was enough to make me want to cry. It was so
Wow.
loud. Um, that pain was still there. Like got to the point where I was trying to figure out what can I do to avoid sitting or standing? Because that's when the pain would come. It was better when I was laying flat, but every time I sat up or stood up, bam, that baseball pain was there. So it took me a little while to realize, oh, if I crawl instead of walk,
Oh my goodness.
I can keep my head level with my body. And maybe that's kind of like laying down, but I can still move from point A to point B. So I started crawling like in March. I figured out how to like slither out of my bed and crawl to the bathroom and crawl to the kitchen to get a drink. And it was kind of working. Like it was better. And then I get to this, when you've been sick a long time and the doctors don't know what's happening and nobody really knows what's wrong and you're, quote, normal, but obviously not normal, you get to this really strange place in your head where you think, well, maybe this is just how life is now. Maybe I'm just being dramatic and maybe I just have to crawl everywhere now because that seems to be working and I suppose everything's normal. So maybe I'm a little bit crazy. And so I crawled for a few months. I crawled from here to there. I could at least eat. Then I figured out how to eat laying down, laying flat, because I figured out that the more I was flat, the more I even got rid of my pillow, like that type of flat, my head felt better. I had less nausea when I was upright. My brain could think clearer. It got to the point where when I was upright, if I wasn't crawling or anything, I had such nausea. I lost like 15 pounds in 2 weeks because I wasn't eating. And the brain fog was so significant that I couldn't even remember my phone number.
Wow.
Like I had to look on my phone to see what my phone number was to write it on the doctor intake form.
Wow.
So obviously something is wrong with my brain and my body, but nobody can figure out what's happening. So it took a while. It took a lot of conversations with myself, with God, a lot of digging deep with God, a lot of talking to my husband, because he was one of the few people who never doubted me the whole time. I would understandably maybe doubt someone that I knew if they were telling me what was happening to them. Everything's normal, says the doctors, the experts. Are you sure it's as bad as you say that it is? And yes, it is, but maybe it's not. And then you doubt yourself and it's just this web of confusion and turmoil, all the while your body's not cooperating. So I started to take matters into my own hands and started researching. And when I say researching, I mean that if you can picture me laying in my pitch black bedroom with no pillow, totally flat, one eye open, Googling on my phone for 5 minutes at a time, because that's all I could get.
Wow.
And I was trying to use like what felt like the 3 brain cells I had left to scientifically research what was happening and not just go on Dr. Google, because we know Dr. Google can be a little scary and sometimes inaccurate. So I didn't want to blow things out of proportion, but I knew something was happening. So I started researching and I started to find a trend, finding some research that said that I likely had a cerebral spinal fluid leak. So cerebral spinal fluid, short CSF, is a short abbreviation for it. That's the fluid that coats your spinal cord and your brain. And it's kind of like there's a water balloon that covers that whole system and keeps it all safe and cushioned in there. And when you have a leak, there's a hole in your water balloon somewhere. So when you are flat, when you think about gravity, when you're flat, your water balloon's not going to be as leaky as when you sit upright. Then it's going to leak out more.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense why my symptoms were increased when I was sitting or standing. And lo and behold, every time I would sit or stand, my brain would, because of the lack of fluid, would drop in my skull, like creating a concussion every time I would sit or stand.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay.
So the pieces are coming together a bit. It's starting to make sense that my symptoms and why I have so much brain fog and inability to function, because I am getting concussions repeatedly throughout the day. So now the next task is, how can I find a doctor who's going to believe? And I'm a nurse, right? I'm supposed to have 100% faith in the medical providers that I work alongside every day. But my experience up until now has shown that everything is normal. You're being dramatic. Maybe it's all in your head. Maybe you should just get up and move around. And I don't know what the problem is. Like, that's what I've been encountering with all the providers I send to. So I had one appointment that I had not been to yet. If you have ever had a challenging medical situation and you tried to get into a specialist, you know that, especially in the U.S., maybe not in Canada, but in the U.S., it takes a long time to get into a specialist sometimes. I mean, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 16 weeks, it can take a long time. So there was one specialist, a neurologist, that I had not been to yet because I hadn't waited enough time. And finally, I got to that appointment. And I was beyond ready for this appointment. And I'm getting ready for it. And the phone rings. And it's the doctor's office. And they called to say that the doctor was sick that day. And he would not be able to see me. And neither would any of his partners. And when I say that, it felt like all the air, the remaining little bit of air that was in my, quote, balloon was squished out.
Yeah.
So defeated. And I said, okay, well, when can I come in again? It'll be about 6 weeks before he has an opening. And I was just crushed, like brought to tears on the floor in the bathroom, pleading with God, like, why? What is happening? Why are we doing this? So I saw some more providers. They were all unpleasant experiences. Finally got to that neurologist, and he said, I think that you have a CSF leak. And I had tears of joy because finally someone knew what was happening.
Yeah.
They believed my symptoms. And if you have a diagnosis, that means you have a treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that just sense of relief. And I didn't even have to break out my ever-growing binder of medical research at that point because he already knew. So such a blessing. Okay, so I have this CSF leak. For some reason, I have a hole in the dura, the lining of my spine and brain, that's leaking out fluid. It happened spontaneously. We don't know why it happened. Probably a viral illness in the early phases when I had body pain and that kind of stuff was an attack on my nervous system, created this leak. He said, we're going to fix this like next week and you're going to be back to work. Amazing. This is so great. So we went in, we did some more imaging. It didn't show anything still. It didn't show a leak. Even when we were trying to find a leak, it still didn't show a leak. And I've learned that 40% of people with a CSF leak do not have anything show up on imaging. So understandable why it's hard for a doctor to diagnose this when almost half the time you can't even see it.
Yeah.
Do you have proof? So we did the treatment. It did not work. I ended up having to travel to multiple states, attempt this treatment multiple times to finally get the situation resolved. And I think it was November of that year before we got it resolved. So I spent about a year, almost a year, totally flat, in bed, in the dark, not interacting with my family, really, clawing my way out of this hole of medical mystery to figure out what was happening with me because nobody else was really knowing what was going on.
Like, talk about not just physically dark in your room, but dark for you personally, like in your spirit, in your faith, everything. Everything's being challenged, right?
Every single thing. Yes. Yeah. It was hard.
So you crawl out of your bedroom, but you're also trying to crawl out of this hole and trying to find some light and some relief.
Yes.
In every area of your life.
Yes, absolutely. Every cell of my being was desperate for hope and light. For sure. For sure, for sure. And it was really during those times, the darkest of times, that my faith in God grew exponentially. Because if you know, listeners, if you've been in a place where your body is not playing by the rules, the doctors don't know what's happening, your family wants to fix it, but they can't. Even if you had all the money in the whole world, it wouldn't fix what was going on.
Right.
Where else do you turn? And for me, I turned to my faith, and I really deepened my relationship with God and have come to know his voice and his presence so much more than I had before this journey started. So that whole experience, and there's more, plenty more to the story, but that whole experience was a driver too in writing the book. As I try and land this plane here,
I like it.
In the book that I talk about, my book's called "When Grit and Grace Collide: Persevering Through Life's Challenges with Grit and God's Grace," and just coming to know God and having faith in his plan, even when you cannot see 3 steps ahead of you. That he holds the lantern to your feet, and he's a light into your path, not a spotlight beam unto your life, literally walking by faith and not by sight for a while.
Okay, so the book has a huge meaning for people and a huge comfort for people.
Yeah.
What kind of feedback have you had to date on the book from people who have read it, people who have interacted with it? What have you heard back?
2 things. The most common thing is, oh my gosh, I couldn't put it down. I read it in one day. I've heard that so many times. Because like I said, I wanted it to be a conversation. So it's pretty easy, read. So people were really captivated by the story. And the other thing is people didn't realize what all was happening in my world, especially if they knew me personally. Like even my parents and my husband's parents, they didn't realize the depth that we were facing, even though they talked to us often. Yeah. So that was interesting. And I think that's human nature, right? To kind of like smooth over the rough edges a little. Even when you're being honest with the people you love, we try and smooth it over to make it feel like, oh, it's not so bad. And apparently we were doing that a little excessively because they read the book and most of them were taken aback by the true depth of what we were dealing with, and that my faith could continue to grow and get stronger during it as well, rather than abandoning, right? In that place, you have the choice. Either you're going to grow in your faith or you're going to let it all go.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew letting it all go wasn't really an option. That's not going to serve me very well if I let it all go. So I chose to hold tighter to it. And I'm so grateful that I did.
Because someone listening to this, Sarah, is probably thinking, if they don't have a faith journey and they don't come from that background, like you and I do, they're listening to this going, if that was me, I would be so angry at God or whatever they defined as their higher power. But I'd be so angry at God, that would just make me walk away from it. Or in your case, crawl away from your faith and be like, this is not, nobody's helping me here. I'm not getting an answer from anyone, including my belief.
Yeah.
So what is the point of all this? I can't even play with my kids. I can't go back to the job I love. Yeah. Everything I love has been taken from me. So how could you not be angry in that moment? Like, how can you say that it's not even an option to give up on your faith? I don't understand that as a listener right now. I want to challenge you on that because I don't think I could do what you did.
Yes.
How is not giving up on your faith not an option?
Yes. It's a yes and moment for me.
Okay.
Yes, I did not give up on my faith because it felt like literally the only option. So if I give up on my faith and no earthly thing can help me, then what do I have left? Then I am swirling in a pit of despair, which makes me really understand why this condition and other conditions that are rare and not well studied and cause immense pain, why those conditions have such a high rate of divorce and suicide.
Yeah.
Because the darkness becomes too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it might make me emotional. I had 2 little girls that I could not give up on.
Right.
So, yes, I was mad at God. I was so mad at God, but God is bigger than that. He can handle my madness and my frustration and my challenge. His shoulders are broader than mine will ever be. Mm-hmm. And he wants me to give it to him because I can't carry it all.
Yeah.
It's really hard to carry things when you're crawling. I don't know if you've ever tried, but that's really hard. So you literally have to let it go and just have faith in it to get you through each day.
What have your girls learned about their mom in all of this?
Oh, man. They have learned that I have a strong faith, of course. And I've been able to be a living example of that faith to them, during the darkest of days. When they would come into my room on Fridays, we had Yay Day, we call it. And that would be like, I would muster up all the energy that I had for 15 minutes. And they would come into my bed with me. And I couldn't get up. So we would make silly selfies. And we would stick our tongue out and we would be so silly for 15 minutes for Yay Day. And just finding the little moments of joy in the midst of the darkest of times. And we continued Yay Day for quite a while, even after I was a little more functional, because it was fun. And so I think they've learned that you can walk through really hard times in life and you can have strong faith and you can find joy even when it feels like it's impossible. There's always some little glimmer to find of joy. And they are so much more empathetic. I mean, I don't know if maybe they would still be empathetic if we hadn't been through this journey, but I have to think that they're more empathetic of the situations that they cannot see in people's lives than other people who haven't walked this journey.
So as we're chatting, I have your Amazon reviews up here as we're talking today and recording.
Yeah.
I'm reading little bits and pieces while we're chatting of what people have said about you and your book. And it's so encouraging to see how the book is landing with people and their insights on what you have written for them. One of them I'm reading here from Carlos says, from the time I picked it up and saw what it was about, I was captivated. It was very easy to read and inspiring. There's so many lessons to be learned from this book. I would highly recommend it to everyone. And Carlos obviously gave you a 5-star rating, and his caption is, it's very captivating, this book. So for Carlos, who has purchased the book and is sharing it out with the world, what's your message to Carlos as he reads this book?
Yeah. My message is that I'm grateful that my journey has been inspiring and captivating, because that's something else that I have really had to hold tight to during this journey when nothing makes sense. And to be frank, I'm still fighting some challenges related to this health journey, and I might always fight them. So this story is not over, that's for sure. But to know that it can impact, my struggles can impact someone else and give them encouragement and hope, what a gift that is, to know that what I've been through, it serves a purpose, and it's helping other people, even when maybe I can't help people in the same way that I used to in the hospital setting. I can still help people with my journey.
Yeah. So, Sara, someone is listening to this, interacting with this podcast. They're in that moment right now. It feels like it's never going to end.
Yep.
They're hearing your voice. You're hearing you talking about your book. If I got out of the way for a few minutes, and it was just you and them, and you both have an understanding of what this feels like, what is your message to that person that's listening right now in the silence, and they feel so alone and so misunderstood, really, really struggling?
Yeah.
What would you say to them if I just get out of the way for a moment?
I would say that don't give up. Keep going. I know it's so hard for you to even get out of bed, literally, to crawl, to take another step. You feel like there's not any hope anywhere. Humans are failing you. Everything seems to be failing you, and nothing seems fair. But I want to encourage you. I want you to dig deeper than you've ever dug before, into your heart, to keep pushing forward. Advocate for yourself. Learn what you can, and rely on your support system. I promise you there are people in your world that want to help you during this time. So put your humility aside and let them help you, so that you can use that limited amount of energy to keep pushing forward, find the next step, the next answer. You might not have the whole path, but you just need the next step today to keep going forward, and don't give up, because you're worth it. You matter and you're worth it, and the world needs you and your story.
I love that you say the world needs you, because that's true. We need you, if you're listening. So, Sara, as far as where we're going to buy the book, and as well as where we can contact you, maybe we're a podcaster or we're looking for someone to come and either virtually or be a part of our group or talk about your book to a public group. But we need to reach out to you and connect with you. Like, where are you most active online, and your website, any of that information that you can share with us? Then I have one more question before we leave today.
Yeah, for sure. So the book is available on Amazon, and I am most active probably on Instagram with my business. It's cedar.wellness.coaching. I've used my journey to launch a part-time coaching business to support people in seasons of struggle, and, creating balance in their life so that you don't end up in the same spot that I was in because you've ignored your body for too long. And then you can always email me as well at sarah@cedarwellnesscoaching.com.
Okay. That's great. And again, to those listening and you buy the book, when you buy, not if, when you buy the book, leave an amazing review as well for Sara, for all the other people that are looking at the book, to scroll through and read these amazing comments like what Carlos had written. It's nice to be able to get that kind of information to know if this book is going to help me or my loved one, someone in my life that needs this information and needs this story. So please leave an amazing detailed review anytime you purchase a book from our authors here on the show, because it means so much to know how this book impacted you. Yeah. So Sara, my podcast is called Living the Next Chapter. So my question to you as we close off today is, how are you living the next chapter, you personally? The book is out in the world. People are loving it. People are sharing it. What is your next chapter? Can you kind of give us a sense of what's next for you in all this story?
Absolutely. While I am, like I mentioned, I still am navigating some health challenges. I am using my energy and my journey to support people with my remote coaching business. And I always, whether you want to be a coaching client or whether you have no need for coaching in your life, because one thing is for sure, when you are in that season of darkness, coaching is not for you. Like, please reach out if you are in that season of darkness and you want to connect. I am here to support you as someone who has been there, and never will I offer to do coaching with you, because that's not what you need most right now. If you are a few chapters ahead of the dark season and you're wondering, okay, how can I keep going, or if you don't want to get to that dark season, absolutely would love to support within my coaching business. And I also love to connect with people who want to learn more about my story or are interested in speakers, that kind of thing as well. Happy to share and be a support and a light to whoever needs it in the world.
Sarah, thank you for sharing your faith with us. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And to your family as well. I'm sure that they're inspired just seeing you today compared to what they've seen in the past in your journey as you kind of go through this. I'm sure that they look at you as an amazing, strong person who continues to move forward, and all that strength isn't your own. You're pulling strength from something much higher than yourself, and that's an inspiration in itself. So thank you for taking this much time out of your day to talk to us and share your story and present your book to us. And again, for those people listening, all the information for Sara will be in the podcast show notes, and you can click through and go buy the book and support Sara in her journey in her coaching business as well. And if this is not your story, somebody who could benefit from this conversation. So I'd ask you on behalf of Sara to share this episode with them so they can hear Sara's story, because it's amazing. So Sara, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Listeners, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. It really means a lot. It's a gift for sure.
Okay, well, thank you for being here on Living the Next Chapter. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed having you here on the podcast. Our authors are amazing. I hope you appreciate their time, their effort to make this possible. If you know an author, if you want to recommend an author, that's a good idea. Hey, if there's an author that you really would love to hear about or hear from, if you send me a message, you speak pipe on our website, livingthenextchapter.com, send me an email, go over to livingthenextchapter.com, send us a message. We will forward your message to that author and say, listen, you are being requested to be on Living the Next Chapter. Our audience can't wait to hear from you. You can help shape the show. Yeah, you. You could do that right now, actually. You got a minute, right? Okay, how about you do that? livingthenextchapter.com. I'll see you over there. Recommend an author. Yeah. See ya. Thanks.